Gavin Hollerich.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. It's a pleasure to speak with you in the chair. And can I also thank our old friend, the member for Westminster and Lonsdale, and bring forward this very important debate. It was good to hear him speak in favour of free markets. It's not always something we hear from his party, but nevertheless, in this particular occasion, very welcome. But I do agree with him. We are in a broken market. And must draw the House's attention to my registered members' interest. I've been involved in the housing market for many years. But the scarcity of land across the country, but not least in the areas we're talking about today, in those rural areas, which many of which is covered by National Park. In much of my area is covered by National Park, of course. Those scarcities are even more profound. We're already intervening in the market, is reality, by creating that scarcity through the planning process. So I don't think it's wrong that we talk about interventions here, because free markets cannot be the only solution to the problems we have in the housing market. And certainly second homes are playing having a very big effect in terms of creating those even greater pressures within affordability constraints in some of these rural areas. And not just rural areas, as the Honourable Lady said, member for York Central. Certainly this is many urban situations as well faced by the same kind of issues. But in my patch, the Council of Rydale covers much of my area. Average house price there around £300,000, average earnings to house price ratio of about 8.7, Hambleton 7.2, other places like Filey, again, attractive coastal resorts, prices are going up, increasing number of holiday lets, putting further pressure on local people in terms of being able to find properties to rent and to purchase. We just can't rely on a supply and demand equation to solve all these problems. That's the reality. We must look at various different interventions. And I really do think what the government's done in terms of the first home schemes is part of the solution to this problem. I think that's an excellent policy. I don't quite agree with the honourable friend who responds to the debate in terms of that not being a solution to his constituency. He mentioned the fact that average house prices in his patch were about 11 times incomes, I think. First homes could be up to half price, of course. Transfer values in my area from developers to housing associations are below half price. Therefore, there is no reason, in my view, that some of those houses can't be made available to purchase in perpetuity discounts at half price, even below half price. And I would urge the government actually to rename that whole policy of first homes half-price homes, because I think we could deliver many properties around the country to local first-time buyers at half price. And that would make a significant difference to his constituency and to mine. It would mean young first-time buyers can buy properties in my constituency below, that would be 4 or 5 times average earnings, which does bring that in scope for lots of people in my area. I fully concede it's not all about affordable homes to purchase. We also need affordable homes to rent and shared ownership and lots of other things. But I do think that's a very important policy that we should be driving further forward. Taxation is bound to come into the conversation here, and I absolutely think we've looked at this. Clearly, the government believes this already, because there is a stamp duty surcharge for second homes already, which is this 3% surcharge. So the government believes we need to do something about second homes to try and level the playing field between investors and second home owners and first-time buyers and other buyers in our constituency. So this isn't uncharted territory for this government. So I think to talk about should there be a council tax surcharge as well, I think we should have that conversation. I think that sounds perfectly sensible conversation to be had here. But also, while recognising the fact we as a party believe in freedom, and freedom of choice, and if somebody wants to use their money to buy a second home in a different part of the country as an investment or a place to live, then that shouldn't be something we should be totally against. So it's trying to strike a balance between the two to try and make it a fair and level playing field. There is another place we can go, I think, here, though, that could make a very big difference and could fund lots of different activities, and that's looking at where we tax overseas owners, non-resident overseas owners. And this can be in rural areas, but also in urban areas too. And I don't think there's any argument why we shouldn't tax those people pretty heavily if they own property in the UK and are non-resident. We already put a 2% surcharge on top of the 3% surcharge for overseas owners. But these people are having a very profound effect on some house prices in urban areas as well as in rural areas. I think 28% of the properties sold above £2 million are bought by overseas owners. around 20% of all properties in London, for example, and probably a decent quantity in York and other cities are owned by overseas residents. So I don't see a reason why we wouldn't seek to tax those people even more heavily than a 100% increase in council tax. If we applied a 1% wealth tax, this is not for UK residents, but for overseas owners of UK properties, it would raise around about £4 to £5 billion a year. I think there'd still be incentive for those people to invest their money in the UK, and I'm not against them investing their money in the UK, but the reality is it would make it a fair and level playing field. They would still benefit from the very high house price growth that we've heard today. We've seen house prices rising probably in the region of late single digits, probably around 10%. Still makes sense for people to invest, but it does mean we can take a little bit out of that monies every year they're making in terms of the house price inflation and putting that elsewhere. And I would recommend we put that £4 or £5 billion a year into the First Homes programme, increase the number of properties made available to our local first-time buyers who are keen to get in the housing market, so make sure we have those local people who've got a stake in our communities, are available to our employees, for our employers to do the very important work we do to make our communities sustainable. Thank you, Mr. Sherman.